I am Rachel Humphrey with It's Personal Stories, a hospitality podcast. We are a nonprofit out of Arizona in the hospitality industry dedicated to empowering personal success. And I am really excited to be joined today by Rod Clough, the president of HVS. Rod, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Rod, we're going to jump right in, spend a little bit of time today talking about your specific journey to leadership and then also some of the insights you've learned along the way. One of the things that everybody knows I love about the hospitality industry is how incredibly unique two journeys can be, and yet people still end up in roles of leadership within the hospitality industry. I think it's one of the most special aspects of the industry. So tell us a little bit about you, your background, your journey to leadership, and how you got to where you are today.
Sure. I grew up in a college town in Boulder, Colorado, just down the road from where I'm living now. And my first foray into leadership was way back in high school. I had a job at CU Catering. My dad at the time was doing a lot of business with catering and had gotten to know the catering director there. He was associate dean at one of the colleges. And so I got an after school job there and just fell in love with it and stuck around because I loved it so much. And then a supervisory role opened up and I jumped into it. It was great fun to lead events and be in charge, make sure the customers were happy, make sure the staff was figuring out how to make sure the staff did their jobs. But quite often the staff, or almost always the staff, was older than me. They were college students for the most part. And then just pulling everything off without a hitch from beginning to end. It was a lot of fun. And so I realized that I had a passion for it, for working with people and leading people, but at the same time, enjoying the work and making rooms come to life and everybody enjoying their moment in whatever event we were doing. Looking back on my life, I feel like that job, strangely enough, really had it ended up having a lot of kind of core importance for who I should say it provided a really good foundation for my starting in the hospitality industry.
I love hearing that there's something that really your first experience led to a lifelong career in an industry. Tell us how that role at CU then led to what you're doing with HVS.
So my leader in that role, now I had grown up, my father was a chemical engineer and still is. He loves his work. Even to this day, he's writing textbooks and rewriting textbooks with his best friend. Brilliant man. And I remember being in high school, my junior year, I was in AP physics and I was really struggling. And I have a vague memory of going down to the dining room table, which is where my dad always worked, with a problem that I couldn't figure out. And I was a straight A student and it was really hard. That A was really hard to get. And he said it in a loving way, I think, but there was a look, I think, on his face of, you're struggling with this and you want to be an engineer? So that was a moment. And then back to my catering story, the manager of the catering division at the time, her name was Tara. She had gone to the Cornell Hotel School and was a grad. And she took me to the side and saw how much I was enjoying the work. And she just planted the seed. You should go to college for this. You can make a career out of this. And growing up in a world of engineers and really a world of STEM, which is all I knew and my friends knew, and they were all applying for these positions or these college tracks, I thought, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And so I took that idea and I ran with it. I applied to Cornell, got into the hotel school, and never looked back. But if I hadn't had that catering job and met Tara, and if Tara hadn't taken me to the side and seen something in me to plant the seed and even tell me that this even existed, because back then in when was that? 1988, there was no internet. And yeah, there were counselor offices in high schools that you could go to, but they wouldn't have known of the Cornell Hotel School in Boulder, Colorado. So it was one of those moments where, wow, okay, this is meant to be.
I'm a big believer in sliding doors. And so I think that those moments that change the direction that your life takes, so many important themes in there, not just about having someone who sees something in you and makes a recommendation to you, but then taking that risk, or your dad giving you the side eye that you interpreted to be that maybe that wasn't your path. One of the interesting things to me about your journey is you've been with HVS for almost 30 years, or just over 30 years now. We do see in hospitality certainly a lot of longevity, maybe different from some other industries. I'm curious how you think your leadership has changed over time. And when you're at the same company for that length of time, how do you stay fresh? How do you make sure that you don't get complacent with that same company?
Sure. So I think my leadership certainly has changed over time. I think in the beginning was very rigid and to the point where I would write out procedures and come up with checklists and just look at everything in such minute detail. And realizing that back in the beginning when I was learning the craft myself and hiring people that also didn't know the craft, I had to do that just as a function of the work and the function of building a team, along with wrapping it in a really good culture so that then those folks wouldn't leave me. And so over time, as I've built my team and my leaders have stayed, I've been able to release that need to oversee that level of minutia and manage that and move on to looking at different things and looking at bigger picture things, or looking at things that bring me more satisfaction over time, because the minutia can become very draining. So that's been nice to be able to have a team that sticks with you, and then they take on the training and that level of leadership in their own light. And I know they're not training their people the way I train them. They're putting their own spin on things. And that's great. One of the other things I believe in is really hands-off leadership. Like once you find somebody who is really exceptional, just let them be exceptional. And there's no need to be checking in on them all the time and to see exactly what they're doing and how they're doing it. So that's been another way that I've evolved. There was another part to your question, I think, that I didn't.
How do you stay fresh with
Okay.
being with the same company? Because for a lot of people, the familiar becomes very easy, and this role is anything but easy. So how do you stay fresh?
So one of the complaints that I've received from some employees over the years is that we're always changing, and it's come through on like my annual employee surveys that I do, that some folks just don't like that. They would write in the survey specifically, they're like, Rod needs to stop changing our processes. He needs to stop coming out with change and new ideas. We just need a moment to breathe. And that's just how I'm wired. So I am always looking for new ideas for the next best thing, for brilliance that's out there in the world. I love borrowing that and seeing how it can fit at HVS and putting our own little spin on it and then launching it. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't work. And then after a few years, we quietly let it retire. And then we come up with something else that's new. And so we've ultimately over time found a team of people that kind of thrive in that culture of what's next. And whatever's next, it's probably going to be great. But where I learn my content is from all sorts of different places. I will be out at hotels and I see a hotel being run extraordinarily well, and I'll ask a GM what they're about, what they're doing. I have a great set of friends that are in all sorts of different industries, and they bring ideas to the table. I've recently fell in love with podcasts and also listening to books, and I'm more of a listener, not a reader, but listening to people's life stories and a lot of autobiographies and business books too, and wellness books, all sorts of different types of books. These authors have great ideas. And so those tend to trickle their way into HVS. We have all sorts of different fun challenges that we do or gatherings that we do. And we create this world where the ultimate goal is to create a world where people don't want to leave. And it does take you back to that, our parents' generation, I think, where people would start their careers in the 50s and 60s and early 70s. And you would do so with this intention of this is where my career is going to be. I'm not going to quit in 2 years. And so that's how and my dad being a tenured professor, that's how I was brought up. He never, ever left his job. And so that was my world, and very different from the world today, where folks want to stay for a couple of years and then move on. So we have to learn to celebrate that and embrace that reality, but also let folks know, I'm getting off on a tangent here, but let folks know that this is a great place to stay, and we'll make it fun. And the ideas can come from anywhere.
Right. I didn't know we had that in common. My father was also a tenured professor for 55 years at the same college in New England. And I didn't know it any other way when I left school as well. I always love to share with our audience why someone was of particular interest to me to invite. Because as you just said, how you like to learn through podcasts, I like to share people's life journeys and insights through the podcast. And you had reached out to me and said, hey, I can see that you are advocating for greater representation of women in the industry, and it is something that we share in common. I wanted to read the quote specifically because I was very impressed by it, and I reached out to you about it. Your bio says, as an openly gay Latino senior executive, Rod strongly believes in fostering a welcoming workplace for all. And I was really taken by that because not only the focus on culture, which is so important in our leadership nowadays, but also in representation. And I was wondering if you could share a little bit about that importance for you. And is that also part of your evolving leadership journey, or has that been with you from the beginning?
Yeah, it's been with me from the beginning. I did grow up very much in a white world. Boulder, Colorado is not a diverse place, but it was a loving city and a welcoming city. It wasn't really until I got to Cornell, where even Cornell in itself is not highly diverse, but it was certainly more diverse than Boulder. And I was exposed to all sorts of newness that I had never seen before. And it was wonderful. And I myself, back in the day, you didn't really come out when you were a kid like they do today. So I didn't come out until I was nearly 30. And at that point, I was at HVS and back in the Boulder office before I launched my own division, right before I launched my own division. And the leader of the Boulder office at the time and the employees in the Boulder office were amazing. And like most of my closest friends, when I came out, it just wasn't any surprise. It was like, okay, thank God he finally came out. But it was that, and then a couple of years later, me launching my own division, and also the founder of the company and the Rushmore family being very welcoming of all. They set up a great culture from the get-go. Their second office ever was co-owned and led by a woman, Suzanne Mellon, who's extraordinary in her own right. And
she's been a guest on the podcast as well.
Okay, great. Suzanne's amazing. And so I did the work early on to be very confident and proud of who I was and what I represented in my orientation and also with my skin color. And I knew others didn't have that upbringing that I had that was so positive. I did have my negative moments in there, but they didn't really frame who I was. There was a lot of positivity surrounding that. And I wanted to be out and celebrate it from the get-go. What's happened, interestingly enough, over the course of the past 5 years is that I have, and through the reading I've done and listening that I've done and conversations that I've had, is I have evolved. And I am very proud of who I am, but I'm also equally proud of and respectful of what everybody else is, because everybody is different and comes from their own unique group, and they have their own challenges and identities that they come with. So they're all welcome too. So my cisgender white men that are who they are in every way are, if you think about it, they're just as different as everybody else is. Like, they have their own unique aspects. And I hope, and I've engendered a culture where they know that they're just as welcome as my trans staff are, or as my conservative Christian staff are versus my agnostic staff are, or atheists. But it is what it is. Like, we're all so different. When you get to building these teams, we want to focus on the work, and we want to focus on funding our passion and working hard, but we want to do so in a place where we know we're going to be safe. And that's really what I believe in. And so by me just coming out and saying, this is who I am, I want to just put that out there, that I feel safe here. And so you too should feel safe.
It's really incredible. And I'm very appreciative for your sharing it with us as part of your journey and as part of your leadership as well. When we talk about representation, one other aspect of that, certainly, and you and I have talked about this, is representation across industry stages as industry leaders. If most of our industry's leadership maybe fits into one, either gender description or race or ethnicity description, how do we make sure that representation that you are experiencing with your company is reflected across our stages? I'm curious in public speaking, because you do a lot of it, whether it's at conferences or podcasts or other things, if that's something you've always been comfortable with. Do you have a process that you implement before you're going to take the stage? Any advice you would have as you're bringing up the next generation of speakers at HVS that you impart on them?
Sure. So it really wasn't something I did very much. It's a new muscle for me. I've grown up with a bit of imposter syndrome, I think is the right saying, where I have surrounded myself always with, even back, to when I was in grade school, I would always find the smarter kid in class and I would become friends with them. I did it all through Cornell. I would do that. And then they would inspire me and really push me. And I would want to excel as much as they were excelling. And so too, here at HVS, I would surround myself with the best. But by doing that, it's a little bit daunting, because you want to take the stage, but you're like, but I'm not quite the smartest person here. Mm-hmm. So let me have the smartest person take the stage. And so for the first 20 to 25 years of my career, really 25 years of my career, I didn't take the stage, because there was always somebody in my mind that I thought was a little bit smarter and a little bit better than me. I had to completely change the way I was thinking about public speaking, and embrace and realize that I am smart enough and I can take the stage. And I would take the stage at my company events and I would lead them, and I would get the entire ballroom laughing, and I would finish the day at my annual summits, and people would just be like, Rod, you've got, not to toot my own horn, but they'd be like, you have a gift on stage and you made that so much fun and you connected with everybody. Why aren't you doing this more in an industry ballroom? And so I finally did. I'm like, you know what? I love being on stage. So let me lean into this. And then this is only just recently where I'm beginning to realize that it doesn't always just have to be the same 2 or 3 people speaking at a company, that it can be everybody at all levels, because we're all so smart at this and everybody has a story to tell. So I've been working on it. I have been training. I took a class, immersive storytelling, which is a fantastic class taught by Allie Hoyt and Carter Wilson. I did that. Through that class, really, and other things that I've taken on and other teachings I've taken on, the importance of practicing in advance. Some are even saying you should practice a speech 15 or 20 times before you give it. That takes a lot of time when it's an hour-long speech. So I'm not quite at that level yet, but the importance of practicing, recording yourself, listening back, planning everything out is really a big deal. And it does make a big difference. My rule when I take the stage, in addition to practicing and making sure that I'm ready to go, even if I know the content, like you still need to practice, but I desperately want the room to chuckle. They don't need to do a belly laugh, but I want a chuckle at some point during the speech. And then this has only happened a couple times, but if I can get somebody at the end of the conference when they're recapping the highlights of the conference, if one of those highlights could be me, that's always a feel good. It means that I made an impression, because the last thing you want to do is be just another one of the very smart and brilliant conference speakers, but the ones where you're like, okay, I can't wait to get on to the next speaker. This person is just not thrilling me. And so a lot of that does go back to storytelling. What story are you telling? How are you connecting with the audience? How are you making it fun and interesting? And then, yes, throwing in the data and the insight along the way, but make it fun.
I love the intentionality that you are approaching it with the goals in mind, with the practice, investing in yourself to get it right. I also liked what you said about your own imposter syndrome being a hindrance to your public speaking, but listening to the voices of others who are like, you should be doing this more. And sometimes I find that if I let my support system's voices be louder than my own, then great things can happen after that. I want to switch gears for a second to building a great team, because you have talked about bringing leaders along who then you allow to lead. You've talked about having this team around you as far as the public speaking goes, having a culture where you want people to feel safe. When you're actually interviewing, when you are looking to expand your team, is there an it factor that you're looking for? Are there common traits that you found, like my best hires have kind of these things in common? What are you looking at when you're trying to make those important decisions?
So that's a tough one for me, to be honest. We have a rigorous hiring process where folks initially have to answer some screening questions and then have a screening interview. And then we do an exam where folks have to do a lot of writing and numerical work and pass the exam with a high score. And then once that's done, we do a day in the life. And we bring somebody into the office that they're going to be in, and they spend a good part of a day with us, going to lunch, hanging out, looking at what we're doing, a couple things to help us out that day, and just to see how it's going to go. But then beyond that, like, that's all we can really do. We, depending on how that goes, we'll hire somebody, and usually it works out, but every now and then it just doesn't. And so for us, it's more of a time will tell kind of thing. We do hire, I think, from the get-go, but even in our last hiring class, we had 5 or 6 people start, and 2 of them, this was back in like March, and 2 of them have moved on. It just didn't end up being a good fit. I will say though, over time, if people stay with it and they love the work and they love the culture, and then they want to move into that leadership role, we do a good job at embracing that and helping people along that path.
I think it's a good recognition that not every fit is a great fit, though. You're right. You can have a great hire and it not be a right fit, and vice versa. I could talk with you all day long, and we're going to end up running out of time. So I'm going to do a couple of rapid fire ones with you. There's a kind of a renewed interest right now, especially for me, but in self-care and wellness, and probably in a lot of the folks that are joining your team. I'm curious if you have a self-care or wellness journey, if you have some non-negotiables. Do you do a good job of taking care of yourself in this demanding role? And what insight or advice would you give to some of our rising leaders who might be struggling to find that balance between establishing a career and taking care of themselves?
Yeah, I love this question. I am a huge believer in wellness, both education-wise and execution-wise. I had the busiest month of my last 5 years this last month because we landed a huge engagement. And going into that, I just knew I'm gonna keep my fitness going. I go to the gym every morning, not every morning, but 4 days out of the week, I'll go to the gym for weightlifting. But every day I go walking, and I walk for an hour each day. And it's usually my podcast hour. I'll listen to a few of my favorite podcasts or a book. I've got a walking playlist that I have, or I go at a pretty good pace, but I can do some phone calls on my walks as well. So I normally start my day between 5 and 6 a.m. because I'm in Colorado, and it's early to rise here in Colorado when you live west of New York. And then by 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, I'm ready for a break. So I'll do that. And then that is married with a very careful regimen of eating for me and drinking a lot of water, no soda, focusing on my sleep, making sure that I'm in bed every night by 9 p.m. I wake up early, but I'm to bed early as well. And we've got a wellness committee at HVS. We do wellness challenges through Wellable. We give everybody a water tumbler. I share my stories of wellness, and my staff see that I'm prioritizing wellness. I'm on Strava. They can join me on Strava. They can see where I'm working out, where I'm walking every day. And people love that. They love knowing that, look, the president's doing it, and the president's stepping away from his desk for an hour to go walking. Maybe I can too.
The modeling, that's so important. I love that you have the non-negotiables of the walking in the gym and the hydration and other things. Sleep is the one that still eludes me, but I'm trying to get better at it. But I love modeling it, and for other people to know that's what you're doing and that it's okay, because it really reinforces the importance of it. One of my favorite questions always to ask, because I think we are all works in progress and we are all continuing to evolve as people, as careerists, what it may be, is what advice we would give to our younger selves. So I'm curious, Rod, as you sit here today and you think back, whether it be to that boy in the catering department or to your taking off or graduating from Cornell, what would you tell 18 or 21-year-old Rod, either about how things have turned out for you or maybe something that you wish you knew then that you know today?
Oh gosh, there's a lot. I think I probably wouldn't have jumped so head over heels into my first relationship. Because it took me a minute to find my current husband. And we always think of, oh my gosh, what if we had found ourselves a little earlier in life? But that's one thing. I didn't embrace fitness until later on in my life, and I love it. And I wish I had done that in my 20s. And more reading. I'm just, like I said, I'm a listener, there wasn't really a lot of books on tape back then in the 90s, but more reading. I really push with my staff we have a dashboard online that pops up on your screen at the beginning of your day. And you can upload, you're meant to upload a Y photo, and it sits at the top right-hand corner of your screen. And then through our Franklin Covey training, which we've done a lot of and continue to, we all have our big rocks that you're supposed to be spending time on, the stuff that matters, and it's important. So you have your Y photo and those big rocks, and it's all about getting out of the whirlwind of the work and understanding that the work that we're doing at HVS is funding our passion. And I wish I would have done that more as a kid. What is my passion? And I don't have to just be working all the time. Like, I can actually be spending more of these younger years having just a little bit more fun. I think I would have told my younger self, it's all going to be okay. You can take some of that money, and instead of socking away and saving it, which saving is good, but maybe have a little bit more fun. I don't think I had enough fun.
I love that. I like the everything will be okay. I feel like that's what my answer to this used to be the everything will be okay. Now it's more focused on taking care of yourself as part of your daily routine, but I love that everything will be okay. As we sit here today thinking about the motto of It's Personal Stories, which is empowering personal success, is there any final advice that you would leave our audience with?
I think for personal success, and if I were to just be able to burrow into somebody's soul and to just tell them really what it means, is to, like I said, just to really understand what that bigger picture goal is for you, and to really structure time and effort around how does that look in your life and what are you doing? Time is just, maybe this happens once you turn 50, I'm not sure. But for me, when I turned 50, all of a sudden time started moving a lot faster than when I was in my 30s and 40s. And I imagine when I turn 60, it's going to move even faster. And I think just taking charge of that, understanding that time is moving quickly and it's our most valuable resource. And how are you using it? What are you doing? We put all this planning into our work. How are we going to complete this assignment? And how are we going to get this out to the client? Why aren't we doing that with our lives? We could be doing, I think, such a better job of that. So that's my advice.
That's great advice. Rod, I'm so excited that you joined me today, shared more about your personal journey, some of the things that you've learned along the way. I'm really grateful to have you join the podcast today. So thank you very much for doing so.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you very much.
And to our audience, we hope you've enjoyed my time today with Rod. You can visit over at itspersonalstories.com. If you are out walking on your path and you want to be listening to podcasts, we have about 250 interviews with our industry's most impactful leaders. We hope you'll check them out there. But Rod, thank you very much again, and thank you for your leadership.
Thank you.